You're listening to the Shit You Can't Make Up podcast, a conversation with friends, hosted by Marisol Sanchez.
Hey, I hope everyone is doing well. It's Sunday, October 4th, and I'm leaving for, India in 2 days. So, I thought I would tell you, I would talk a little bit about my trip to India. So that's what this podcast is about. But before that, I wanted to say thank you to everyone listening. Thank you for subscribing. You can subscribe at Marisol's podcast, Stories from a Midlife Crisis, on iTunes. That would be lovely. If you think someone would enjoy my musings on my midlife crisis, please share. Thank you for also liking my Facebook page, which makes me cringe when I say it because it's very difficult for me to self-promote. But I do enjoy doing this. I've gotten really great feedback. I'm going to work on figuring out a format. Someone has offered, oops, I hit that. I hit the microphone, that's what the oops was for. Someone's offered their son, to be clear, to write some intro music for me, maybe intro, exit, and so that's exciting. This is self-produced, non-profit. It's me and a mic and my Mac, and I just want to say I am listening to feedback. The feedback's been about format. Lot of discussion about linear versus radial talking. And the best way I can say it is, people fall in two camps. One camp wants me to be more structured, maybe more scripted, more rehearsed. And the second camp is go with the flow, talk about what you feel like. And then so there's that. So I think I need to figure out a happy medium there. I do take notes. I do have notes. Unfortunately, I just don't talk that way. I go in circles. But generally, I have a point, and I knew this podcast was, I knew with this trip coming up that this is what this podcast was going to be about, but I didn't know what I was going to discuss. So, I have to give you some backstory on a couple things before we get into the meat of the podcast, which is about my trip to India. And I'm going to talk about spirituality again, which, maybe that's part of my midlife crisis. I don't know. But some backstory. I have to give you two backstories. I have to give you a backstory about my yoga practice, which is an Ashtanga practice, and some details about this trip. And then sort of my realization that maybe I'm putting some big expectations on this trip, or that I'm really honestly scared to death about going for many reasons. So, people, I've been planning this for most of this year, really, and it's a common comment would be, oh, that's your eat, pray, love. And now, like 2 days before I'm leaving for this trip, I'm like, if this was really my eat, pray, love, I would be choosing to go to Italy or Bali first. And this is what I knew this podcast was going to be about, because when people say, oh, your vacation, or reference it in that light, I'm like, oh, no, like, I don't know what it is, but that's not what it. So let me back up. If I am completely honest with myself, if I had unlimited resources and someone said, list the top 5 places you would go on vacation, not before I started studying yoga would India be in the top 20 places that I would want to go. To me, vacation is a pina colada facing the water. I don't know. Culture, different cultures, different. Oh, I guess it's a completely different culture, but I don't know. I don't know. I'd want to go to Paris, even though I've already been. It's my favorite place in the world. Or I'd rather go to Italy, which I've never been to and have always wanted to go. Gosh, Greece sounds lovely. Probably very cheap right now. Anyway, if I was being completely honest, India would not be where I would choose to go on vacation. I honestly, between those 3 options in the book / maybe Eat, Pray, Love, Bali would be first, or maybe Italy. I don't know. But India would not. But then I feel that things kind of, this is going to get, I don't know what the word is, yogi-ish. But I kind of feel like it's the trip I'm supposed to be taking, and I think other people have felt that and articulated that to me, and I don't understand, but I'm starting to get it now that I'm literally 2 days away from going on this adventure. But so I have to tell you a little bit about my practice. That's the pitter-patter of my sweet little puppy, Hope. She's going to be a constant guest on the podcast. She's a sweet little dog. We adopted her around Christmas time, and I think it was the first year that after the divorce. So basically, my kids could have asked for anything, and they would have got it that Christmas. And her name was Hope, so I was like, of course we have to get her. Then about probably 2 weeks after we adopted her, she got this horrific skin condition that basically makes her smell like death. It's just really is just awful. So, but sometimes it's not, it's seasonal. It's not all the time, but it's a poor little thing. But her and I have definitely had an evolving relationship. But she's a sweet dog. Anyway, that's her in the background. Okay, but back to this trip. So, so I was telling you, I'm more of a Marriott spa package, mimosa kind of vacationer than what is it, the second most crowded country in the world. The poverty, the stories of crime and attacks on women. It's a country that when it wasn't a desire I've ever had to go. I don't know. Up until the point I started to practice Ashtanga. Maybe even before, because I know where I used to practice, they have a program where they take people to India. It's a service project for an orphanage. It's called gosh, Home of Hope Orphanage, and help just. Oh, that's my puppy. I'm sorry. Help little girls who have found themselves in situations you just can't even imagine. So, I'm just saying, when I heard those stories or I heard about that organization, I did maybe think, oh, maybe that's something I'll do one year. And I did see people that went on that trip, or know people that went on that trip that really did come back in love with India and in love with the whole experience. And you see it in their face. You see it when they talk about India, that it's something special to them. All that still being said, it wasn't a place I would. I'm scared to go, and I don't know if this comes from a complete, ignorance, but I'm scared of the smells. I have an incredibly sensitive sense of smell that it happened when I was pregnant with my twins, but it was like I got a superhuman strength of sense, and anything that's anything of any strength triggers migraine. So that's a fear I've got. The poverty is a fear I got. The getting lost, the I have to pack. Anyway, but that goes into more detail. Up until yoga was India on my radar. But still, if it was on my radar, it's kind of like, maybe 10 years from now, maybe when all my kids are out of school, it's a trip that, on my bucket list. It's still, I never had a sense of, like, India's calling, ever. Till recently. But, and I'll tell you about it. And that's what this podcast is actually, what I'm trying to tell you about. So, somewhere very early on I gotta tell you about yoga. I'm sorry. Back up. So this particular style of yoga I'm gonna try to tell you about it as quickly as possible. One day I would like to delve into it more, but I need more of an expert on it to discuss it with me than I'm a student of it. I'm not a teacher of it. But it's Ashtanga. It's an Ashtanga practice. And it's been about 2 years, little over 2 years, that I started practicing Ashtanga. It's a lineage practice. And in relation to India, it has a very specific tie to India. We have 2 types of practices within Ashtanga. It's a Mysore practice, which is named after a place in India, Mysore, where this practice was born, and guided. Guided is more, is a group of people getting together at the same time, being led by a teacher's, breath count. Something similar to what you would experience in a yoga class here in the United States, but it's also different. It's different. We have an opening chant and we have a closing chant, and that's where I think Ashtanga sort of led me to this path of rediscovering or discovering. I would call it rediscovery, to be honest, of any relationship to spirituality. When I was about 5 or 6, my parents were still married, so I know we lived in New York. It's one of the earliest memories I have. It was a conversation I was having with my mom in her room. Um, and two things happened in that conversation. It's the first time I ever heard about astrology, and my mom telling me that I was a Cancer. And I remember just being really upset that I would, of all the signs, that was my sign, because it had such a, Cancer in my head had a negative connotation with illness and sickness. I was like, I don't know why I remember that. There's no significance to me sharing that, but I do remember that. And then it was, I don't know why. I guess because I've probably been an emotional person my whole life, though I shut it off for most of my life, or maybe inquisitive, or I don't know what the fuck you want to call it. But I asked my mom, I'm like, do you love me more than God? And I remember my mom's reaction. She put her hand to her chest, kind of like inhaled a little bit, took a breath, and she said, no. It's like, you love God first. God is the first that you love. Now, my 5-year, 6-year-old self, however old I was completely crushed. And that was, that's the beginning of my relationship, my very complicated relationship with God and spirituality. So it's not a great start, right? But I want to, before I delve into that a little bit more, I want to go back and before painting my mother as this, horrible Joan Crawford kind of character, which she definitely has shades of. But if you have the perspective of history and compassion, and you look back at her story, that's what we were taught. That was our culture. That was our religion. It was a fear, it's you love God first. And it was ignorance, really, too, I think. But anyway, I don't want to paint her as this harsh, horrific character, because it's not the point of this podcast, but I was just kind of giving you the genesis of my complicated relationship. But, I'm just saying, don't judge my mom too harshly, because being one of 12 from Honduras, she was repeating what she was taught. So anyway, going back to me, so that was my beginning with God, and I've done other podcasts about my complicated views on spirituality and so on, but there was a time when in that period of time we were Catholic, we were raised Catholic, and now I'm going to swim back to Ashtanga, when I kind of started to have this, when my practice became something more than physical exercise, when it turned into something, was more spiritual, is when I started to feel the familiarity of my Catholic upbringing, which I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, but the things that I loved about it, and in the Ashtanga practice, we do an opening chant, we do a closing chant, and I so sorry. Again, that's how. Shh. I was very resistant to the chanting when I first started doing Ashtanga. I was not. I didn't think of it as a spiritual practice. I didn't know that's what I was looking for. I knew I was looking for something more out of my practice, but I couldn't articulate what it was, and I thought I'd give Ashtanga a chance, and I did find it there. And when I, day after day, would put my hands together in, a very familiar hand positioning, the one in front of your chest, it looks just like a altar boy. And when I added meditation into my practice and mala beads, that was like, oh, this is I remember the Apostles' Creed. I remember the Hail Marys. I remember the Our Fathers, and that repetition. I miss that. You know, what I wanted to say right now is called zoning out, but like meditating. Like it was I don't know. I didn't know that I missed it, but I missed it, and but my views with Catholicism are very complicated. When my brother, back up, I went to Catholic school, and so I'm already kind of mad at this God for, taking my mother's love, or being first in my mother's love than I was. Then, my home life isn't so great, so kind of like, again, kind of like putting that on him. And then my mom, my brother passed away when I was 9, and my mom went through just all these changes, and she went very fundamentalist Christian, and I was young, and I had to be with her, and the things I think about, in the sermons I heard, and and then counter that with what my home life was like. It was just like, I just didn't want any part of this God. And then, especially when you study the Old Testament, then it's like, well, God, I don't want to be offensive right now, but, my inner dialogue was like, this guy's awful. Like, why would you do this? And the whole, and I say plural, religions that I grew up with, none of them just felt true to me. So somewhere along the way, I can't remember a moment, I can't say exactly when, but I just was not a believer. I was like, no. And for many years, my 20s, 30s, it's not something I really discussed. I didn't go, when I had my own life to myself, I didn't go to church, and but I didn't discuss it. It wasn't, I don't know. I guess I would be called more agnostic in that period. it wasn't necessarily that I was out there. I certainly believed that there was nothing, but it's kind of what I probably, I don't know how to explain it. But then I got married, and still, married someone where we kind of agreed, had the same views about religion and about how we were going to raise our children, which I have two of the most outspoken atheists. No, actually, I think one's moving towards agnostic right now. But, I raised them to... I was the mom that said, study all the religions, interchange my vocabulary to say religion with mythology. And that's what I taught them. Why? If not directly, definitely by just the way we lived our lives. Didn't go to church, though ironically they were exposed to, in preschool, I think one of my kids, went to one, and that actually created a lot of conflict, because I actually had to go to a therapist appointment with her because she was getting this one and one story, which we signed up for, so and a different story at home, and it wasn't congruent. She had some confusion with that, and we had to go discuss it and discuss her feelings about it. And then I learned that I couldn't answer the question when my daughter asked me, and again, she's 9, so she's the age that I was whenever I was already having thoughts about religion and past life and questions about what I was being taught and what I was living. So, she's funny how that works, how life works out that way. So even I'm already studying Ashtanga at this point when this happens with my daughter, but I couldn't answer the question. I couldn't say what I believe in. And, I used to say things as simple as, I believe in being good. I believe in being honest. Like, just and I still believe in all that. I don't think it's that complicated. And if you step away from this is my personal opinion, all of the different teachings, they all basically, say the same thing. And it's love and kindness, compassion. Anyway, I don't want to stray too much into it, but so I've had this kind of complicated, conflicted relationship with religion, God, and spirituality. And then probably within the last year, I've gotten more comfortable. I've gotten to a point where I don't feel my chest completely constrict on me when I use the word spirituality. I am a little bit more comfortable with my kids seeing that aspect of me. Okay, which then takes me back to this trip. So, in my practice, in Ashtanga practice, it's not a requirement. It's not. I don't know how to explain it, but the people that teach it, at least, I would say, if not all, I don't know if it's a goal, but it's to go study in Mysore at one of two different shalas there, and where I am in my life, or with 3 small children, I just didn't think going was something that was going to happen. I was never, not never, but it would be many years down the line before I would be able to go to practice with this teacher. And something, so this trip comes up, and this trip it's not in Mysore. It's a yatra. It's a trail or I don't know. We're going to go see many different holy temples and this river and special holy sites and do the practice and practice. But when I signed up for it, I didn't read the deep. I just was like, oh, I can do this. It was reasonably priced. It's Indian. I hope my podcast listeners are fans of dogs. Shh. So when this trip first came up, it was sort of like, oh wait, it's 12 days. That's pushing it, but if I get my ex-husband to watch the kids, I can do this. And I don't know. I didn't even know about the holy temples. I didn't know about the river. I didn't read the stuff. I was just like, yeah, I'll go. And when I cleared the dates and mentioned it to people, and it was funny because people would look at me and they're like, "This is going to be your Eat, Pray, Love," and I didn't understand. It's not that I didn't understand what they meant because I'd read the books and stuff, but in my head it was still like, I'm just gonna, it's just gonna go practice it with someone other than my teacher and or with the leading guy, but it was about my practice. I didn't think this was any kind of spiritual trip. Then as we got closer and I started talking to other people that I know going and paying attention to the packing list, and is when I started like, oh wait, this could be, a little rougher than I'd first imagined. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm putting too much expectation on the trip, but I kind of feel like, I don't know. Almost like I'm looking for closure on so many things from my past. Simultaneously, I feel like I have found grace or God, but also kind of like solidifying that even a little bit more. Like I'm still there. My inner dialogue sometimes is still that non-believing, almost mocking atheist. So when I hear about river that has healing powers, I don't think, oh yeah, let me jump in. I don't. It's not. But hey, I'm gonna go give it a try, and I'm scared either way. I'm scared if it does, change me in some way, and I'm also nervous if it doesn't. So, but I think I'm totally overthinking it, which I know I am because that's what I do. I overthink shit all the time. But I do feel like this trip is, I don't know, something greater than me, some life-changing adventure that I'm meant to be on. I hope, and I don't know, but I'll talk about it when I get back, and I'll tell you all about it, and tell you about the festivals, and I don't know, maybe you can help me figure it out. Anyway, thank you for listening. Again, please subscribe on Marisol's podcast, Stories from a Midlife Crisis. Please like my Facebook page. I really hate asking that. Like, it makes me cringe to self-promote, so that's really hard for me. So if you could actually take the time to do it, that would be lovely. And also, please, on my Facebook page, you can message me, or you can email me at Marisol's MARISOLS podcast. I should probably look that up. Okay, don't email me. But on my Facebook page, any comments are welcome. Any suggestions about the podcast, I appreciate, or anything. And what else? I got nothing. So I don't think I can't podcast. I'm not taking my mic with me, and I don't have anything in the can. So I will be taking a break for a few weeks, but I'll be back. So happy October. Enjoy it. Favorite month. Favorite holiday. Halloween is my favorite holiday. Wait, actually, it's probably the only holiday that I like. So, if you're in the fucking's pathway, I hope you're staying indoors, off the roads, and safe. And I will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.